The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 64, Southeast. The black arrow reflected a frightening cold glint in the sun. At the critical moment, Jing Xiao tilted his head suddenly, and the upper arrow grazed his cheek, leaving behind a burning pain. Of the two arrows below it, the right one brushed over his silver armor with a clang while the left one struck him in his left arm. Ugh! Jing Xiao groaned. Then he raised his hand and pulled out the arrow on his arm, pulled out the bow on his horse, put on the very same arrow that hit him in the string and shot back along the arrow's original path. The three arrows flew in the shape of a character wherein if the person being shot dodged to the left arrow would have hit the heart, dodged to the right and the arrow would have pierced the lungs while the upper arrow was aimed to pierce the throat. The godly archer general didn't expect that Jing Xiao would not dodge at all and even had the energy to fire back. He quickly drew his bow and shot an arrow to counter it. The two arrow tips collided. The general's arrow had greater force and broke the incoming arrow into three parts while the other two arrows both fell to the ground. Everyone had never seen such an accurate archery skills and they were a little stunned for a moment. By the time they'd come back to their senses, the godly marksman had already turned his horse around and ran away. The southeastern army who came to ambush them also retreated quickly. Zhao Meng and his cavalry were about to chase after them, but Jing Xiao put down his bow and said, "There is no need to pursue them." There were less than 100 soldiers left on that southeast army troop. Pursuing them on this narrow mountain road would be dangerous and the gains wouldn't be worth the losses. "Your Highness, you are injured." Hao Das-hao put away his blade and gathered the troop. When he saw Jing Xiao covering his left arm, he came over and to inquire about the situation. Only then did Jing Xiao felt the pain and he couldn't help but take a deep breath. "Your Highness, don't ride anymore. Let the military advisor give you some medicine for that," the left protectorate general said expressionlessly. When Jing Xiao heard this, he immediately jumped off his horse. Then he signaled for the army to continue marching and got into the carriage himself. Mu Hanzhong looked at the person in front of him quietly. He took off his armor without saying a word. He tore open the blood-stained sleeves, dipped a cloth in tea and wiped the blood around the wound. The wound was small and deep, and it was still bleeding. Fortunately, it did not hit the bone but only stabbed the muscle. He took the medicinal powder to stop the bleeding and sprinkled it on the wound without hesitation. "Ah, it hurts!" Jing Xiao yelled with his teeth bared. Mu Hanzhong ignored him. After the bleeding stopped, he took out the small sapphire jade bottle and applied a layer of that medicine. He took off his cloth belt and used it to wrap the wound carefully. He tied a neat knot and then let go of Jing Xiao's arm. Jing Xiao breathed a sigh of relief. In the last life, when he attacked the southeast in the 18th year of the Hongzheng era, the godly archer general had fired these three arrows at him. At that time, he subconsciously avoided it and was hit in the chest, which almost killed him. He remembered this lesson this time and only suffered a light injury. He felt as if he had finally avoided an impending disaster. His uneasy heart could relax at last. He lifted his eyes and saw that his prince consort still have the same expressionless face and couldn't help but felt a little aggrieved. He was hurt and Jun Qing haven't even said a single thing to comfort him. He suddenly wanted to inch closer to eat some tofu when unexpectedly, he was pulled into a warm embrace the very next moment. Mu Hanzhong embraced his husband in his arm tightly and only then did he let out the breath that he had been holding this entire time. The warm and solid feel of Jing Xiao's body finally confirmed that this person was still alive, safe and sound within his arms. The scene earlier was just too frightening. Seeing those three arrows flying straight at Jing Xiao who couldn't dodge them, the sky and earth had seemed to suddenly become gray and Mu Hanzhong even forgot to breathe. The faint fragrance filled Jing Xiao's nose and he was caressed warmly and softly. Jing Xiao was stunned for a moment and then realized that he was being held in Jun Qing's arms. The smile on his lips gradually widened. He reached out to hug back his prince consort around the waist as he relaxed and nestled into his arms. In his 2 lifetimes, no one had ever held and consoled him like this when he got injured, so his heart couldn't help but swell with emotions that he had never felt before. If he had married a woman, she would probably just be sniveling right now. How would she be able to hold him like this and made him rely on her? The carriage continued to move forward slowly. Neither of the 2 people in the carriage spoke. Only the sound of the wooden wheels pressing on the stones could be heard continuously. Jun Cheng. Jing Xiao happily rubbed against that warm chest. Mu Hanjiang patted the head in his arms and sighed softly. Then he came back to his senses, looked down at the person in his arms and said warmly, "You're probably tired. I'll hold you, so you should sleep for a while." Jing Xiao had just fought a fierce battle. After all that tension, he had to be tired. Jing Xiao was naturally very willing, but he was afraid that Jun Qing would find him too heavy and got tired of holding him for a long time. He stretched out one hand and grabbed a pillow to put on his prince consort's thigh. Hugging his narrow waist comfortably and smelling that faint fragrance, he closed his eyes with peace of mind. Although Liangyi Mountain was big, it didn't take long to pass across it. Once they got to the level ground, there would be no danger that they would have to guard against until they reached the southeastern border. Therefore, in the next few days, the injured Prince Cheng stayed in the military advisor's carriage with no qualms and without bothering to go out. Xiao Huang was very dissatisfied with Jing Xiao taking the space within the carriage. With its current size, sleeping in the carriage with 2 people would be too crowded, so he was often thrown onto the footrest by Jing Xiao to sleep. Moreover, Jing Xiao was very fond of using this tiger as a footrest, often taking off his socks to rub the solace of his feet on that yellow fur. Xiao Huang ignored it at the beginning, but when it continued for a long time, it started to turn around and gnaw on Jing Xiao's feet. Mu Hanjiang would discourage this kind of behavior at first. Later, he found it to be interesting. He even learned from Jing Xiao and tempted Xiao Huang with dried meat so that it would lay on its back and reveal its belly for Jing Xiao to rub his feet on. Not long after they arrived at the southeastern border. Before them lay countless hills and rocky mountains. The undulating hills were stacked on top of each other. Looking from a distance, it seemed like an endless repeating scene. That was why the local people call this area Chongling, the repeating mountain range. The southeast was not as desolate as the southwest. It had a large population and abundant resources. Although the king of the southeast was violent and licentious, he was very good at fighting, and capable generals emerged under his command, one after another. In this land of hills, it could be said that there was no danger to guard against, but it could also be said that there was natural danger to guard against all around. Jing Xiao led the army to fight for nearly a month, and only managed to advance for less than 100 li. The war fell into a stalemate. Looking at the map in front of him, the undulating hills occupied nearly half of the southeastern territory. Jing Xiao sighed. Winter was about to begin. Even if he captured the main city immediately, he might not be able to make it back to the capital in time for the new year. War is not a child's play. How can it be that easy? Mu Hanjiang pushed a cup of tea in front of him. Yes. Jing Xiao sighed. The battle for the southwest had gone too smoothly, which had made him a little rash. Why are you so anxious to return to the capital? Is it about some important matter? Mu Hanjiang sat next to him and looked all around. He didn't know where the little tiger had gone off to. It's no big deal, Jing Xiao chuckled, it'll be the same thing if I get someone else to do it. Anyway, he had already told Renfeng before leaving the capital that if he didn't make it back by then, someone else should be there to do it. Mu Hanjiang raised his eyebrows. Judging from Jing Xiao's appearance, it shouldn't be anything serious. He shook his head helplessly. Then he got up and went out to look for the little tiger. By the river outside the camp, Xiao Huang was standing on a stone and staring intently at the fish in the river. The water was gurgling and the big silver fish were swaying in the water. They looked very delicious. Plop. When Mu Hanjiang came over, he saw a big ball of black and yellow hairball jumping into the river. It wasn't able to catch the big fish and only got itself wet all over. The little tiger climbed up to the shore and shook off the water droplets on his body. The fluff on its face had flattened because of the water, which was quite funny. It raised its eyes and saw its master, and immediately rushed towards him happily. Mu Hanzhong quickly dodged aside and glanced at the big paw stained with muddy water with dismay. He had only given it a bath yesterday and it was all in vain. Wow! After failing to catch the fish to eat, the little tiger cub lay on its back at its owner's feet and turned its belly in an appeal for dried meat. Woo-oh! The sound of a bugle came from not far away, which was a crucial moment at the start of the battle between two armies. Jun Cheng. Jing Xiao, who had come out to find his prince consort so they could go back for lunch, noticed that the sound of the bugle had drawn his attention. So he pulled Jun Cheng up onto a small dirt mound in front of them. In the distance, they saw a black mass as the two sides rushed forwards with smoke and dust billowing, and the sound of killing was loud. If we continue fighting like this, I'm afraid a lot of our troops would be sacrificed. Mu Hanzhong frowned and looked at the battlefield in the distance. Is there any news from Ruoyi recently? Jing Xiao hugged him from behind and said, no, her situation will definitely not be easy. I did not arrange for her to send news to the outside from the beginning. Ji Ruoyi was the hidden weapon he buried next to the Southeast King. Naturally, this couldn't be revealed to anyone. If a mistake was made in the course of doing something as trivial as delivering news, the gains wouldn't be worth the loss. Huh! The person in his arms suddenly exclaimed. Jing Xiao raised his head and followed his line of sight, and saw that the Southeast Army, which had a vague advantage, suddenly retreated and turned around. Looking at the sky, it was just noon. To withdraw the troops at this time, something wrong must have happened within the Southeast Army. Let's go back quickly. Mu Hanzhong turned around and said. Jing Xiao nodded and took his military advisor back to the central tent. Not long after, the soldier who was reporting the updates came running back. Report. The soldier rushed into the middle tent and knelt down and said, reporting to the commander, the Southeast Army suddenly retreated. General Hao is asking for instructions whether to pursue. Jing Xiao pondered for a moment. Although he said that he should not pursue the enemy, the scene he saw on the mound did not look like a trick to lure the enemy in. Chase. A simple word, loud and clear. The messenger soldiers immediately accepted the order, mounted their fast horses and immediately galloped away. Hao Das Hao accepted the order to pursue, and found that the Southeastern Army was suddenly in chaos. He rushed up and killed them regardless of the situation. When night fell, he returned to camp with a blood-stained armor. He didn't rush to clean up, and went directly into the middle tent to report back. This general thinks that based on the situation of the Southeast Army, it seems that something huge has happened. Hao Das Hao wiped the blood and dust on his face. Commander, this general thinks that no matter what happened, this is a good opportunity to wipe out the Southeast Army while their morale was in turmoil. Jing Xiao listened quietly to Hao Das Hao's report while his heartbeat quickened and grew very excited. This situation was very similar to when he received the news of the death of the king of Southeast in the previous life. Mu Hanzhong frowned slightly. He held Jing Xiao's hand and told him not to be impulsive. Then he turned to Hao Das Hao and said, "Thank you for your hard work, General. Go and get some rest first. We will make a decision tomorrow." It was useless to give chase at night, so Hao Das Hao suppressed the excitement in his heart. He clasped his fists in salute, then turned and left. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 65, Treasure Trove. When Hao Das Hao left, the two of them couldn't help but look at each other. Do you think Ji Ruoyi have succeeded? Mu Hanzhong let go of Jing Xiao's hand, but he quickly chased after him and held his hand again, squeezing and playing with it. I feel like it is so, Jing Shao pulled the lustrous and beautiful hand to his lips and continued, "Whether it is true or not, the chaos in the Southeast Army is a good opportunity to take advantage of." Mu Hanzhong nodded. "If the king of Southeast is really dead, how many of his heirs can succeed him? If there were one or two descendants who could strategically and immediately take over the position of the king of Southeast, the confusion within the Southeast Army would last for a couple of days at most, and then they would get organized again." Jing Shao shook his head and chuckled. "The king of Southeast is only about 30 years old now. His eldest son is not that much old yet. Moreover, in the struggle for the position, he killed his only brother in order to become the heir apparent. There is currently no one who can succeed the king of Southeast. And that's not even the half of it. The Southeast was located by the seaside. In recent years, due to the tariffs on maritime business and the luxury products coming its way, the Southeast royal family became corrupt and indulged in their wealth. This had caused the decline of the Southeast royal family. When a capable descendant did appear, such as the current king of Southeast, all the potential heroes had long since been suppressed. Now that the king of Southeast had died, there was no one who can immediately take over the throne." Mu Hanzhong sighed. "The laws of heaven are unfailing, and proper retribution would befall those who deserved it. The Southeast royal family had reached this point entirely due to their own fault." Jing Shao sent people to the southeastern military camp overnight to gather information. In the early morning, the spies returned with their reports. The generals of the Southeast Army had been up all night discussing something. They seemed to be very anxious. The soldiers in their army were still confused and didn't know what was going on. Jing Shao immediately ordered Hao Das Hao to lead a vanguard troop first, before he led the rest of their troops to move out and follow. Hao Das Hao led the army to the Southeast Army camp. Seeing that they had started to retreat, he shouted loudly, "The king of Southeast is dead. Your defeat is just a matter of time. As of now, you can still be considered as a citizen of our great nation. If you continue to resist, you will be branded as traitors." When the Southeast Army heard about it, they immediately broke out in a panic. From when the generals received some kind of news yesterday to when it had been announced that they have to break camp and march back to the main city this morning, everything was so strange that the soldiers were all in a frenzy. "Hao Das Hao, don't talk nonsense." Surprised and angry, the godly archer general was frightened and angry as he took his bow and shot at Hao Das Hao. The opposing general's reaction confirmed the news of the Southeast king's death. "Kill." Before the arrow could even leave the string, Hao Das Hao waved his hand and rushed forward. Thousands of troops and horses immediately blocked the sight of the godly archer general. He lost his target and was unable to take action for a moment. By the time Jing Shao caught up, Hao Das Hao had already killed the godly archer general with his Han Yuan sword and was chasing the remaining troops who have escaped. The army simply continued moving forward. There were many hills in the southeast and the road that the carriage had to pass along was bumpy, so Jing Shao pulled the military advisor out to ride with him, leaving the little tiger to roll over and bump around in the carriage. The news of the death of the king of Southeast spread amongst the army like a plague, and the morale of their army was weakened. Their generals also didn't have the intention to put up a desperate struggle. Hao Das Hao fought all the way to the main city, Fuchang. Who knew which of the unscrupulous heirs was eager to fight for the position? But when they reached the Southeast Palace, the whole place was covered in white mourning cloth and the main hall was decorated as a mourning hall. With the current situation, they should have kept up appearances. The mourning should be kept in secret while guards should be quickly kept on the front to conceal things. However, these people struggled to show their filial piety and even ordered the main troops to return to the main city to guard it. The news spread all of a sudden and the army morale dropped even wildly, rendering the southeastern army powerless to reverse the situation. When the imperial army broke into the city, the common people were terrified and dispersed in fear. Jing Shao ordered his army not to disturb the common people, and like before, he only brought his personal guards into the palace of the king of Southeast. The people of Southeast Palace was not as ready to flee as those in the Southwest Palace. The entire palace was still in panic frenzy when the imperial army surrounded them. After gathering the family members of the king of Southeast in a small courtyard, Muhanhang checked them one by one but found no trace of Jiruo Yi, which made him feel a little uneasy. Before leaving, she promised that if she had the chance, she would never do anything stupid and wait for their arrival, but now he was afraid that things might not have gone well for her. "My lord! My lord! This daughter was snatched from her family and brought to this palace by the king of Southeast. I am innocent. My lord, please take me away from this place. I am willing to work hard like a horse. I am even willing." A woman dressed in plain clothes suddenly rushed and cried out as she threw herself at Muhanzhang's feet. Her hair was discreetly gathered up to deliberately portray a delicate profile. Muhanzhang hurriedly lowered his head to look but found that it wasn't the person he was looking for. He couldn't help but frown. Scram! Jing Shao, who was following him, suddenly became furious and kicked away the woman who was grabbing Jun Qing's clothes. The woman screamed and rolled to the side. She saw that the two men had extraordinary bearing. If they weren't princes or imperial grandsons, then they must be high-ranking officials or nobles. If she could win their favor, she might still be able to live a life of glory and wealth. After observing for a while, she felt the Muhanzhang had a gentler temperament and might be easier to deal with. She had never expected that the other man would react like that. "Let's go. If Jiruo Yi is here, she will naturally come out to see you." Jing Shao reached out and hugged his prince consort who was getting disheartened and pulled him out of the small courtyard. The women in this courtyard were all out to bewitch and allure. They didn't look like good people. It would be bad if someone pounced on Jun Qing again and wrapped themselves around him. "Does your dream have anything that would indicate that Jiruo Yi is fine?" Muhanzhang looked up and saw his annoyed look. He couldn't help but found it a little funny. This person was also a man. How could he face that courtyard full of beautiful, crying women and not feel the slightest bit of pity for them and felt annoyed instead? Jing Shao's steps paused and a scene from his past life appeared in front of his eyes. The room was draped in white silk as sorrowful crying filled the air. Only one woman laughed to her heart's content amongst the wailing women. The son of the king of Southeast rushed to kill her but Jing Shao stopped him. She said, "Your Highness, would you be willing to hear a story from this daughter?" She explained her past and relayed her story. Finally, when she finished, she pulled out the sword from Jing Shao's waist and killed herself by slashing her neck. When Muhanzhang heard this, his beautiful eyes couldn't help but turn dim. That was just a dream. It's hard to say what's the situation now. Jing Shao sighed softly and hugged his prince consort into his arms. The king of Southwest came to seek refuge but was killed by the king of Southeast. Now the treasures of the two fiefdoms are in this palace. Let's go and take a look. Everything in the residence was still in good condition as even the servants haven't had the chance to escape. Except for some ornaments in conspicuous places, all valuable things still remained. The place where the king of Southeast hid his treasure was not as hidden as the king of Southeast. Instead, he built a separate storehouse in the bamboo grove in the main courtyard. As they passed through the lush bamboo grove, a huge stone building came into view. The stone door was thick and heavy. The large number of soldiers guarding it had already been replaced by Jing Shao's personal guards. Zhang Lang stood in front of the building. When he saw the two of them, he came over to give his greetings. "Reporting to your highness, there is a big lock in this stone chamber. It must be opened from the inside." Zhang Lang was very distressed. His highness have asked him to go ahead and inspect the treasure house first. After studying it for a long time, he discovered its secret. There must be a secret passage leading into the stone chamber from somewhere else. Muhanzhang stepped forward and looked at it for a moment, before he turned to Jing Shao and spoke. Jing Shao nodded. The other end of the secret passage should be in the bedroom of the king of Southeast. He was about to send someone there but unexpectedly, there was a roar and the door of the stone chamber opened by itself. Zhang Lang hurriedly retreated and stood in front of Prince Cheng and Prince Consort Cheng to protect them. The sunlight shone into the stone chamber, reflecting the dust motes in the air. Someone slowly stepped out of the darkness and kowtowed to greet them. A pink muslin dress was wrapped around an enchantingly beautiful figure. She wasn't wearing any accessories or cosmetics, with her hair unbound and loose, but those did nothing to mar her beauty. This servant Jiruo Yi gives her greetings to your highnesses. The originally clear voice was a little hoarse, probably due to the lack of water and food in the stone building. Ruo Yi. Mu Hanzhong stepped forward to help her up. Although she was a little disheveled, there was no doubt that she was really Jiruo Yi. Looking at the Prince Consort Cheng's handsome smile, Jiruo Yi couldn't help but burst into tears. Her life should have ended when she killed the king of Southeast, but she remembered the Prince Consort's earnest words for her to take care of herself before she left. If there was any reason why she should remain in this world, it could only be the kindness of Prince Cheng and Prince Consort Cheng, which she had yet to pay back. Seeing that his prince consort was happy, Jing Xiao was naturally happy, too. He asked Zhang Lang to take Jiruo Yi to clean up and rest before he happily drew Jun Qing into his arms and entered into the stone building. The candles were lit one by one and the things in the stone building were completely revealed to the eyes. In addition to full chests of gold bricks and silver bars, green jade and agate, and jugs of pearls from the southern sea, there were countless antiques, calligraphy scrolls and paintings. The amount of renowned swords and weapons alone were dazzling to the eyes. Xiao Xiao. Mu Hanzhong said slowly, We've struck gold. Although these things were supposed to be handed over to the state treasury, they didn't have an owner, so whoever found them would naturally receive a share. Jing Xiao grabbed a big chest and happily picked out things with his prince consort and stuffed them inside it. Mu Hanzhong still had some sense. He stopped Jing Xiao from randomly grabbing things and only picked up a small box about 3 qi long. That chest is too conspicuous. Even though this kind of thing is an unwritten rule, you have performed an exceedingly meritorious service this time. It will be hard to avoid being criticized by those who will look for any reason to do so. It is better to be careful. Although Mu Hanzhong did not have his mother's innate sense for recognizing treasures, he was more than capable of discerning the value of these treasures. Not only were there many treasures here, but they were also of high quality. Jing Xiao grew up in the imperial palace. What priceless treasure had he not seen before? He naturally understood how much these marvels were worth. Take for example that walnut-sized dark green jadeite pixiu. It was more valuable than the half-qi long white jade Buddha's hand. And that smooth blue jade moon and flowing cloud hairpin was much more valuable than that elaborate dangling hair ornaments for women. Jing Xiao took the hairpin. It was a simple jade hairpin, unadorned and basically without too many carvings. The hairpin itself was slightly bent into the shape of flowing clouds and moons. The jade quality was warm and lustrous. More importantly, it was a man's hairpin. The hairpin was perfect for his prince consort. He walked over and gently placed the hairpin in Mu Hanzhong's hair. He was wearing a sapphire jade crown today with 2 strands of green tassels hanging down his long raven hair. The addition of the blue jade moon and flowing cloud pin was extremely fitting. Mu Hanzhong looked back at him. His beautiful eyes were sparkling with excitement, just like the crystal cup in his hand. It was crystal clear and really beautiful. Jing Xiao couldn't help but lean forward and kissed his eyelids. What do you want to do with this cup? This cup must have come from overseas. Mu Hanzhong was tickled by him, so he smiled and ducked away. Few people in their empire knew how to make crystals into cups. The crystal cup in his hand not only had a special texture, but it also had a unique shape. Mu Hanzhong continued, if we bring this kind of goods into the capital, it will definitely sell for a very good price. Jing Xiao couldn't help but laugh. His prince consort really never forget to look for business opportunity at any time and anywhere. Overseas traders often come to the southeast to sell their wares. We can have some people to come here and buy some items later. They aren't worth too much. If you like, you can take all the crystal cups that are like this from the southeast palace and sell them when we go to Jiangnan in the next few days. Are we going to Jiangnan? Mu Hanzhong looked up. This was the first time he was hearing this. Jing Shao nodded. Returning to the capital from here would just happen to take them through Jiangnan. In any case, it was no longer possible for them to make it back for the new year, so he might as well bring his prince consort to stay in Jiangnan for a while and have him meet that person in passing. End chapter. The Wife is First. Volume 2, Campaign in the Land Under Heaven. Chapter 66, Lu Niao. After selecting the thing that they would embezzle, Mu Hanzhong asked the left and right protectorate general to come help to count and made an inventory of the items in the storeroom. Of course, they would also get a share. The left protectorate general got a treasure sword while the right protectorate general picked up a bag full of pearls. As for the other two generals, considering Hao Dashao's blunt uprightness and Zhao Meng's big mouth, the four of them unanimously decided that it's best not to tell them. Jing Shao summoned hundreds of soldiers to guard the treasury room. After doing a clear inventory and recording them properly, he had everything escorted back to the capital except for a chest of silver. In the excerpt of the report that Jing Shao sent to the emperor, regarding how the king of Southeast died, Jing Shao directly reported that it was a concubine of the king of Southeast who killed him. As for who was this concubine, he wrote down the name of the woman who hugged Jun Qing's leg that day. They rested in the Southeast Palace for 10 days as they waited to receive the imperial's edict and deal with the aftermath of the whole affair. Jing Shao followed the imperial edict and rewarded the three armies with that chest of silver. He then dismissed the Shu, Hunan, and Guizhou armies on the spot, and took only his personal troops with him. They then went north and headed south of the Yangtze River. After a period of rest, Ji Ruoyi's body have recovered fully. She changed into her maidservant's robes and continued to serve Mu Hanzhong like before. She never spoke about what she had gone through while she was in the Southeast Palace in the last few months. Jing Shao and his wife had also tacitly agreed not to ask her anything about it. The weather had turned cold, especially when they marched from the south to the north. They could clearly feel the chill in the air. In any case, they were merely traveling, so Jing Shao didn't bother to save face and huddled into the carriage, burrowing himself into his prince consort's quilt. Because the weather had gotten colder, Xiao Huang no longer served as a footrest. Instead, he lay horizontally and served as a warm pillow, but there was a problem about using a living pillow. Jun Qing. Jing Shao gently kissed the neck of the man under him and nibbled gently on that beautifully shaped collarbone. No, Ji Ruoyi is outside. Mu Hanzhong lowered his voice. It's all right, we'll keep our voices down. Jing Shao whispered in his ear. His voice was rough and the man in his arms trembled with that burst of hot air against his ear. Jing Shao curled his lips and moved to bite that ear. Then, he saw a furry paw stretched out trying to reach that blue jade moon and flowing cloud's hairpin. It poked and scratched the hairpin, flicking it back and forth. Jing Shao. Mu Hanzhong. And thus, Xiao Huang ended up being driven off to become a footrest once more. In the 12th lunar month, Jiangnan was not as colorful as it was during the 3rd month. However, the withered lotus leaves and barren willows also had their own particular charm. The city they settled in was called Pingjiang. It was not the largest city in Jiangnan, but it was the most prosperous. Moreover, the imperial military headquarters in Jiangnan was based in the city. Because the Huainan fiefdom was right next to them, the Jiangnan army was also stationed outside the city. Although the commander-in-chief of the Jiangnan troops did not come to meet them, it seemed that he had already been informed in advance, since the Jiangnan military camp had already prepared a place for them to camp in advance. Leaving his troops in the Jiangnan camp and putting Zhao Meng in charge, Jing Shao took his prince consort and the other 3 generals to go straight to the mansion of the commander-in-chief of the Jiangnan military troop. Lu Niao. This prince is here. Come out. Jing Shao started shouting as soon as he entered the commander-in-chief mansion. Your Highness. The housekeeper who was leading the way couldn't help but take out a handkerchief from his sleeve and wipe his sweat. Prince Cheng's sudden visit had startled him. He had already sent someone to inform the master, but why haven't he came until now? What's with all the noise? As soon as they walked into the main hall, a man came in through from the side door. He was tall and had a cold and strict countenance. At first glance, he looked like a stern scholar, but his voice was full of energy and his pace was steady but barely made a sound. How quietly gestured to the left and right protectorate generals that this man was a martial arts expert. Mu Hanzhong looked up and felt that the aura around this man was somewhat similar to that of Jing Shao the first time he had met him. He also looked younger than his age. He thought he would have to be at least 30 years old to be a commander-in-chief, but he didn't expect that he would be so young. As soon as Jing Shao and other men locked gazes, they started glaring at each other in a tense manner, making the housekeeper wisely withdrew. Humph, this prince has graced Pingjiang with his presence, and yet the Jiangnan's military commander-in-chief was still sleeping soundly at home. This begs for the question of what crime should you be charged with? Jing Shao looked at him coldly. Humph, does your highness call the officials of the imperial court directly by their childhood nicknames? A soldier can be killed but should never be humiliated. Tomorrow, this subject shall present a memorial to His Majesty. Whether His Highness want to behead me or cut me into pieces, it's up to His Majesty to decide. The military commander-in-chief of Jiangnan retorted without backing down even a bit. Everyone. Mu Hanzhong couldn't help laughing. Jiangnan military commander-in-chief Lu Zhanpeng greets Prince Consort Cheng. Jiangnan commander-in-chief turned his attention to the elegant and handsome man and walked up to him with light steps. Peng Bird. Mu Hanzhong smiled gently and aside, there's no need to stand on ceremony, commander-in-chief. Please accept my thanks for your assistance in the business for the past year. Aya, talking like this makes me sound like an outsider. The prince consort made sure that I was properly compensated without even a single one missing, Lu Zhanpeng said with a smile. Prince Cheng and I grew up together, so you can just call me Lu Niao will do. Jing Shao interjected from where he was standing next to his prince consort. Lu Zhanpeng's eyes immediately widened. Your Highness, I am an official of the imperial court. If you insult me 3 or 4 times, won't I not lose face? Fine, fine. Jing Shao waved his hand impatiently and threw at him a sword that he took from the southeast palace. This prince came bearing gift, be thankful. Lu Zhanpeng looked at the sword in his hand, and his eyes immediately lit up. This is a magnificent sword. Your Highness definitely obtained even better ones. Bring them out quickly and let me kill myself with them. Jing Shao finally couldn't help but laugh out loud and punched Jiangnan's commander-in-chief on the shoulder. After introducing Hao Dashao and the left and right protectorate guards to Lu Zhanpeng, Jing Shao let them have fun on their own. Hao Dashao followed the housekeeper to the arranged courtyard to rest. The right protectorate guard was impatient to go out and visit the sites in Pingjiang City, and the left protectorate guard followed him silently when he went out. Lu Zhanpeng, the commander-in-chief of the Jiangnan Imperial Military Troop, was the study companion of Prince Cheng when he was a child. His family descended from the Zhenqiu general who had helped and unite the country. The title of the Zhenqiu general was different from that of the dukes and marquises, which was inherited ones. Only by doing meritorious service in the military could a person attain the title of Zhenqiu general. Because of his meritorious deeds during the campaign against the Xiongnu alongside Jing Shao, Lu Zhanpeng was able to earn the title, and so he became the commander-in-chief of the Jiangnan Imperial Military Troop at such a young age. Sitting in the garden of the commander-in-chief's mansion while drinking tea and listening to the 2 childhood friends bicker with each other, Mu Hanzhong couldn't help but relax. This was the first time he saw Jing Shao acting so unbridled in front of an official. It was clear that the 2 of them had a real friendship between them. Jing Shao looked at the chattering Lu Zhanpeng. His young face was glowing with health and vigor. He thought how this man was implicated in his last life, where he was stripped of his title and was exiled. He was still so young then and yet his hair had already turned white. He suddenly felt as if it was a lifetime ago. Even when Lu Zhanpeng started telling his prince consort embarrassing stories about him when they were young, he didn't get angry. Prince Cheng didn't like studying at that time. He didn't know a lot of characters. Lu Zhanpeng laughed and told Mu Hanzhang with delight. When they first met for the first time as children, the old eunuch told the third prince that this was the young master of the Lu family. The young Jing Shao asked him what his name was. Lu Zhanpeng had just learned to write his own name, so he took a piece of paper as if to show off and wrote the 3 characters Lu Zhanpeng on it in a pretentious manner. Jing Shao looked at it for a long time but he couldn't read the characters. He was afraid of being laughed at, but then he remembered that the eunuch said that he was the son of the Lu family, so he pointed to the first character and read, Lu, N, Niao. And so he was called this nickname throughout their childhood. All right, you have a lot of nerve telling this story about your nickname. Jing Shao sneered, I even feel embarrassed on your behalf. But then who was it who went fishing using a maidservant's embroidery needle, saying that he would catch a koi and then leap over the dragon's gate to transform? Then, only to end up catching a turtle. How was I supposed to know that there were turtles in the imperial garden? Lu Zhanpeng refused to go down without a fight. He fished until he managed to catch a turtle. He had been very young at that time and didn't understand. Who would have thought that he would actually caught a turtle and that he would be chased by Jing Shao for that? For a long time after that, Jing Shao would chase him and called him Wang Ba. Mu Hanzhang's mouth twitched as he listened. Now he finally understood why Jing Shao was still looking for birds' nests in the imperial garden at the age of 7 or 8 years old. With such an unreliable study companion, it would be strange if he ended up studying very well. Right, it's time to get serious. Jing Shao coughed lightly and took out a 50,000 tael silver note and handed it over to Lu Zhanpeng. We'll be returning to the capital in the next few days. I want you to buy me a property in Pingjiang. Lu Zhanpeng took the banknote and asked doubtfully, why do you want to buy a property in Pingjiang? Are you planning to live here for a long time? You don't have to worry about that. Just do as you are told. Jing Shao waved his hand, not intending to explain it to him. If you want to build another residence, why not just ask the treasury to allocate the funds for you? Why bother doing it so secretly? Lu Zhanpeng frowned. Do you think the treasury is a money tree that you can just take money from whenever you want? Jing Shao asked back irritably. Lu Zhanpeng looked at him and pondered for a moment. Then he put the silver banknote away before he said in a low voice, the king of Weinan has always been content with his lot. Would the court also want to remove him as a vassal? Mu Hanzhang's hand that had been holding the teacup paused. The Jiangnan military commander-in-chief seemed to be hot-headed and talkative, but in reality, he was very clever and thoughtful. He easily understood the meaning behind Jing Shao's words. Jing Shao nodded silently. It was only a matter of time before the vassal was cut off, especially the Huainan fiefdom, which was located in the south of the Yangtze River. It was populous and very affluent. Moreover, it has a strong army, which was the true worry of Emperor Hongzheng. Lu Zhanpeng frowned and said, I have met the king of Weinan once. I'm afraid that this person is difficult to deal with. After deliberating over what to say, he really couldn't think of other words to describe the man except that the man was not easy to deal with. Jing Shao smiled slightly and swallowed a sip of tea but did not answer. He naturally knew that the king of Weinan was difficult to deal with. Not only was the man a genius in military tactics, but he was also cunning and shrewd overall. If it wasn't for the large number of troops that the imperial army have, Jing Shao would never have been able to defeat him. The king of Weinan had less troops than he did, but he used up his last few years to almost completely deplete the imperial court's finances. However, going against someone who was difficult to deal with was not necessarily a bad thing. Jing Shao smiled and took his prince consort's hand and stood up. It's still early. Let's go out for a walk and come back for dinner in the evening. I want to eat vinegar braised fish. Do you think this is an pay up? Pay up? Lu Zhanpeng, who was still deep in thought, suddenly became unhappy when he heard what Jing Shao said. I just gave you 100,000 taels, isn't it enough? Jing Shao stretched out a hand and pulled his prince consort out. That money is for buying property. Lu Zhanpeng almost hummed in agreement, then realized what he said and shouted, what 100,000 taels, it was only 50,000. Jing Shao hurriedly took his prince consort and ran away. Mu Hanjiang hadn't stopped smiling since Jing Shao and Lu Zhanpeng met. Now he also couldn't stop laughing. Things are so interesting when the two of you get together. Well, you can't stay in his house for too long during the day, or you will be nagged to death. Jing Shao shook his head, looking at Jun Qing's gentle and elegant smile. He couldn't help but sigh and said, if I had known you when I was a child, I will definitely ask you to be my study companion. Thinking about how he would be able to hug that soft and delicate little Yung Qing and listen to his soft, sweet voice calling him Xiao Xiao. That image was truly too beautiful. Mu Hanjiang was stunned for a moment, then he chuckled and shook his head and said, I am the son from a concubine. I am not qualified to be your study companion. At that time, Empress Yuan was still alive and Jing Shao's status in the palace was high. If an illegitimate son such as Mu Hanjiang was allowed to be his study companion, that would be an insult to his status as a legitimate son. Besides, with Jing Shao's temperament, he definitely wouldn't want someone who was a quiet child like him to be his study companion. End chapter.